Welcome everyone to my Chevreuse guide. In this guide, I will go over her kit, playstyles, artifacts and stats, weapons, teams, and finally Constellations. Chevreuse is an upcoming 4-star pyro character that wields a polearm and has an HP ascension bonus. Chevreuse is a buffer and a healer at the same time. She can also deal decent damage, and it scales on attack while her healing scales on HP. When using Chevreuse's elemental skill, she draws a musket and deals AoE pyro damage to enemies. After she fires a shot, Chevreuse will restore HP to the active character based on her max HP. This healing lasts for 12 seconds and triggers once every 2 seconds. Chevreuse can also hold her skill and allows you to aim. Holding her skill will deal more damage. If Chevreuse has an overcharged ball, which can be generated if any party member triggers an overloaded reaction, she will instead launch the overcharged ball and deal even more damage. Only one overcharged ball can be granted at a time. From her elemental skill, she also deals Usia-aligned Archie damage. This skill has a 15-second cooldown. Chevreuse's burst launches a grenade onto enemies and deals AoE pyro damage. If the grenade hits, it will split into secondary explosive shells, which also deal pyro damage. The explosive shells also have an effect of inward pushback, where it pushes enemies inward instead of outward, which will basically give you a bit of crowd control for smaller enemies. Her burst has a cooldown of 15 seconds and an energy cost of 60. Chevreuse's passives are where her buffing abilities come from. She firstly has an exploration passive where she decreases sprint cost for all party members by 20%. Her first ascension passive activates if there is at least one electro and pyro character in your party, and only those elements, similar to Nilou's passive. When any character triggers the overloaded reaction, the enemies affected will have their electro and pyro resistance decreased by 40%, which is the same resistance reduction Viridescent Venerer set provides without having to swirl. Her second passive, or more accurately, the fourth ascension passive, when Chevreuse uses an overcharged ball, electro and pyro party members will gain 1% bonus attack for each 1,000 of Chevreuse's HP, maxing out at a 40% bonus, which is 40,000 HP for Chevreuse. With that all said and done, Chevreuse can be played as a buffer for electro and pyro characters while having healing as a bonus. From her passive, Chevreuse gives the same resistance reduction as Anemo characters using Viridescent Venerer and increases attack for a maximum of 40% bonus attack. However, her buffs revolve around triggering overload, which is a transformative reaction that does not increase damage a lot like Vaporize and pushes back enemies, which makes you run around having to chase after enemies. Having to play in overload teams can be a disadvantage for some characters, especially pyro characters that can vaporize consistently like Hu Tao and Xiangling. In most cases, with Chevreuse at C0, her buff and restricted teams do not outweigh playing Vaporize for previously mentioned characters. However, this can change at C6, where Chevreuse provides a damage bonus that is not restricted to Electro and Pyro only teams. Chevreuse best shines with Electro characters in hypercarry-focused teams, such as a Raiden hypercarry team that focuses on damage over any reaction, or Pyro characters that don't need to vaporize or are not able to do so at every hit. Playing Chevreuse in teams that already consist of mostly Electro and Pyro characters is also viable. While on the topic of Raiden hypercarry, this team can be played with Furina or with Bennett, Kujusera, and Kazuha. Chevreuse in the second team can be played instead of Kazuha and gives a slightly lower buff if built as a buffer, while being a 4-star and at C0. While she can provide as much damage as Kazuha, you don't always want to play her in this spot. As previously mentioned, Overload knocks back enemies, and while her burst has an inward knockback mechanism to counteract this, it is likely not going to work well to limit the knockback effect. So, in situations with multiple enemies, Kazuha will still be better since he provides crowd control. But against bosses and enemies that cannot be knocked back by Overload, Chevreuse using an attack buffing set like Noblesse Oblige can be just as good as Kazuha, with both units at C0. The fact that at C0, Chevreuse is able to closely match Kazuha's damage buff makes her a really strong unit. At C6, Chevreuse grants a damage bonus of 20% to party members that are healed by her skill. This effect can stack up to a 60% damage bonus, which, even at a single stack, makes her provide a stronger buff than Kazuha. When compared to another 4-star unit like Sucrose, wielding Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers, which increases attack for your next party member. Chevreuse is slightly better, even more so with both units at C6. The same can also be said for other teams, where Chevreuse can provide a strong buff to your damage dealer. Chevreuse can also deal decent damage, but using her as a buffer is cheaper to do and might be more worth your while. But that doesn't mean you have to build her as a support. You can also build her to deal damage. You can use Golden Troop to buff her skill damage, or go with a set like Emblem of Severed Fate to buff her burst damage. Chevreuse's burst at level 9 can deal a decent amount of damage, and it would be slightly better to build for compared to skill damage. With higher constellations, building for skill damage becomes more viable. Chevreuse's C4 gives you 2 additional skill casts if you hold her skill, making building her with Golden Troop for skill damage more viable. With her playstyles explained, as a support unit, leveling her skill is the most important since her healing comes from her elemental skill. As a support, leveling her burst is not necessary and her normal attacks don't contribute anything. If you plan on building Chevreuse as a burst damage dealer, you should prioritize her burst then skill. And again, normal attacks are not necessary. Same goes if you're building for skill damage, level her skill first. For a support Chevreuse, you will probably be looking for a team buffing set. Going for 2-piece HP is not really recommended, as you can reach the 40,000 HP threshold for her attack buff passive by going for an HP Sands and Goblet and some few HP rolls. Going for a set like Maiden's Beloved is also not recommended, as it does not synergize very well with Chevreuse, and going for a buffing set is better overall. Noblesse Oblige provides an attack buff for all party members whenever you use your burst. Noblesse Oblige provides a good consistent buff, with the drawback of having to build a bit of energy recharge to activate the buff consistently. You can also use Songs of Days Past, a new set that came out in version 4.3. This set provides a buff to your active character once the character equipping this set heals any party member. This set sounds good, but the buff it provides is not great, and it requires specific timing to allow your characters to make use of this set. Overall, not a recommended option. If you don't have a good Noblesse set and already farmed this set, you can use it. Chevreuse's Constellation 6 provides more healing, which makes using this set a bit better, but it is still not recommended over Noblesse Oblige. Ocean Hued Clam is also usable on Chevreuse. It provides off-field damage based on your healing. While the damage is not great, it is more consistent than Songs of Days Past, and again not recommended unless you don't have a good Noblesse Oblige set. Chevreuse cannot use Tenacity of the Millilith for the 4-piece attack buff, as she can't trigger its effect consistently. If you are building for burst damage, which is my recommended option for damage at C0, using Emblem of Severed Fate is the best option, as you will need energy recharge, and having a set that buffs burst damage based on energy recharge is the best way to go. You can also use Noblesse Oblige, as it increases burst damage and buffs your party members. At later constellations, where building for skill damage becomes more viable, Golden Troop is the best set for skill damage, and you can use the full damage buff for 2 seconds when you swap Chevreuse on field. C4 gives you more skill casts that you may not be able to fit into the 2-second window, but still using Golden Troop is the best option. As a support unit, you will want to build Chevreuse for HP, as it provides an attack buff from her passive up to 40,000 HP and increases her healing. Since Chevreuse has an HP Ascension stat with 2 HP main stats, being Goblet and Sands, and 2 additional HP rolls from your other artifact pieces, you can easily reach the 40,000 HP target with Chevreuse at level 90. If you are using Noblesse Oblige, you will want an energy recharge investment to provide the attack buff. To burst consistently, you will need around 180% to 200% energy recharge. Although Chevreuse has an energy cost of 60, she does not generate a lot of energy by herself. While this is a high target, if you run an energy recharge weapon like Favonius, you can help cut this requirement down by a lot. If you're running Chevreuse with Raiden, you can get away with much less energy recharge. With Noblesse Oblige, you will want to have enough energy recharge either from substats, energy recharge sands, or weapon. If you go for an energy recharge sands, you can still get enough HP by using an HP weapon like Black Tassel and the craftable Fontaine Polearm. If you have enough HP, you can go for a healing bonus circlet, maybe even crit rate if you're running Favonius and struggling to trigger its passive. To put it simply, you will want an HP Sands, HP Goblet, and ideally healing bonus circlet. If you don't have enough energy recharge, you can use an energy recharge Sands and use an HP weapon or HP circlet. If you're not using Noblesse Oblige, You don't have to build for energy recharge, as the healing comes from her skill not burst. If you're building for damage, go for an attack sans, pyro damage goblet, and either crit rate or crit damage circlet. If you're building for burst damage with Emblem of Severed Fate, you may need to consider an energy recharge sans to meet the energy recharge requirement. Attack is still better, but energy recharge is important to have. If you're building for skill damage, you don't need a high energy recharge investment. For a support Chevreuse, you will want either an HP weapon or an energy recharge one. Favonius Lance helps solve a lot of your energy recharge problems and allows you to run an HP sans. Rightful Reward, a craftable Fontaine polearm, provides both energy and HP. This is a good middle ground between both HP and energy recharge, but not a necessary one, so you don't have to use your billets to craft this weapon. Black Tassel provides the most HP. For healing, this is the best weapon, and it allows you to run an energy recharge sans. While this weapon provides the most HP, all this healing is not necessary, and HP beyond 40,000 does not give you more attack from Chevreuse's passive. This is also a 3-star weapon, which makes it accessible to a wide range of players. Staff of Homa also provides HP, while increasing Chevreuse's personal damage. Before I go over damage weapons, keep in mind that different weapon ranking may use different assumptions. Your best weapon may also vary slightly based on your own build. All these sheets are made with overload damage. For burst damage with Emblem of Severed Fate, the usual suspects are up there, and the catch is the best 4-star weapon. Feel free to pause and take a look. For skill damage, Elemental Mastery makes more of an effect since the skill damage itself is not as great as burst damage. Dragon's Bane is the best 4-star option, and its passive can be triggered easily with Pyro and Electro Overload team comps. Chevreuse's buff restricts her to being played in Overload team comps with only Pyro and Electro characters. The Overload reaction is a transformative reaction that does not increase damage like Vaporize does. Therefore, building Elemental Mastery for Overload damage is not necessary. Teams with Chevreuse will be mostly about buffing the character's personal damage instead of reaction damage. As previously mentioned, Pyro characters that are able to consistently vaporize like Hu Tao and Xiangling won't benefit from Chevreuse's buff, as a Vaporize team will outdamage an Overload team with Chevreuse. In most teams, you will want another Pyro character with Chevreuse to get the Pyro Resonance, which increases attack. Electro characters can shine in hypercarry teams with Chevreuse, especially Raiden hypercarry team. This team consists of Raiden, Kuju Sara, Bennett, and usually Kazuha in the last spot. You can swap Kazuha out and use Chevreuse instead, which will give you just as much damage. Raiden can trigger Overload in this team, from her skill and burst to activate Chevreuse's buffs. At Chevreuse's C6, this team is stronger in terms of outright damage than the Kazuha variant. You can use another Electro character in place of Kuju Sara if you don't have her, such as Fischl. Bennett can also be replaced by Xiangling in this team. However, keeping the original team of Kuju Sara and Bennett will give Raiden the most damage. You can get this exact team from Raiden's rerun banner, as all characters mentioned are featured in this banner. Yoimiya can also be played with Chevreuse, as she can't vaporize every hit like other Pyro characters. With Yoimiya and Chevreuse, you will want another off-field Electro character such as Fischl or even Raiden to apply Electro and trigger Overload for Chevreuse's buffs. For your last spot, you can use another Electro character, or Pyro like Bennett, Xiangling, or even Dea. Lini can also be played with Chevreuse. You usually play Lini with 2 other Pyro characters for his passive and 1 other flex. The same can be achieved with Chevreuse, where you would use an off-field Electro character like Fischl in the last spot. And your last Pyro character can be Bennett, Xiangling, or Dea. The same team comp can also be made for other Electro and Pyro damage dealers, where you would use Chevreuse alongside your damage dealer with an off-field Electro character if necessary, and another Pyro or Electro character that fits your team. There are many strong Pyro and Electro characters that can fit into these teams. You can also discard the Overload restriction and use Chevreuse for her C6 damage bonus. She also has team-wide healing with C6 and can be paired with Farina. Although keep in mind that the healing she provides is not like Jean, where you can fully heal all party members instantly. Moving on to Constellations, Chevreuse has some very strong constellations, ones I was talking about throughout the video. This table here may seem a bit confusing, but the damage here is with a burst damage dealer build, which will make some skill-related constellations seem a bit weaker than they are. The healing section is with a support build with HP main stats, starting with her C1. When your party consists of only Pyro and Electro characters, if any party member aside from Chevreuse triggers the overloaded reaction, they will regain 6 energy. This effect can only happen once every 10 seconds. This constellation gives some energy to your party, which helps your team with energy and overall a decent quality of life upgrade. Chevreuse's C2 activates after the hold version of her elemental skill hits an enemy. 2 explosions will be launched, each dealing 120% of Chevreuse's attack as elemental skill damage. This can only be triggered once every 10 seconds. This constellation will be more valuable if you're building Chevreuse for skill damage. Chevreuse's C3 increases her skill level by 3, which again will be more valuable if you're building for skill damage. This constellation is also where her healing gets the first upgrade. The additional 3 skill levels will increase her healing. Chevreuse's C4 removes her skill cooldown if you hold it. The cooldown returns once 6 seconds are over, or 2 hits while holding her skill are made. This constellation allows you to use your skill 2 more times, but the additional skill cast do not generate energy. So, this skill is a big damage increase, but it does not give you more energy. This skill also makes building her for skill damage more viable than burst damage. Her C5 is an additional 3 levels to her burst damage. Chevreuse's C6 is the biggest upgrade to her buffing capabilities. After the 12 seconds of her healing from her elemental skill are up, all nearby party members will be healed by 10% of Chevreuse's HP. This team-wide healing increases her healing amount by almost double. The second part of this constellation activates when your active character is healed by Chevreuse's elemental skill healing. Each time they're healed, you'll gain a 20% pyro and electro damage bonus, stacking up to 3 times. To max this buff, you will need to be healed 3 times, which will take around 6 seconds and give you a damage bonus of 60%. This is a large buff to your active character. In the Raiden Hyper Carry Team scenario, Chevreuse at C6 will give you more damage than Kazuha at C0. The additional healing also makes running Songs of Days Past more viable, as in your second healing rotation, you can max out the set's buff. But again, making use of the buff is going to be a bit tricky with the timing, and I don't recommend using it over Noblesse Oblige. The bonus damage is also not tied to overload team comps and allows her to be run in other teams. You could even theoretically run her as a healer alongside Furina while providing bonus damage. But that's all from this guide. Chevreuse looks like a very interesting 4-star, one that enables Overload to become a viable team to run. Thank you for making it till the end, and thank you for watching.